Hi viewers, welcome to the Grammar Channel. Today we are going to learn about the lesson My Mother at 66. My Mother at 66 written by Kamala Das. Mothers are the greatest gift of God to humanity. The poet Kamala Das, and through her poem My Mother at 66, portrays her sudden realization that her mother has grown old and may pass away any time. My Mother at 66 is a poem that confesses a daughter's fear of losing her mother. First, the daughter, Kamala Das, here the poet Kamala Das, is surprised to realize that her mother is aging. Next, she notices how the rest of the world appears young and energetic. Poet Kamala Das also wrote by her pen name of Madhavi Kuti. She was born in Kerala and she is one of India's first poets. One of India's first poets. Her subject matter is basically related to her personality, beautiful, sensitive, bold, and tormented ideas. In her favorite poem, My Mother at 66, she talks about her mother. This poem is based on the mother-daughter relationship and the poet shares her feelings for her mother. Introduction. Fear of loss or separation from the old aging mother. It talks about the anguish of the daughter over her mother's advancing age and the fear of permanent separation from her. This is a touching poem written by Kamala Das, and once the poet went to visit her mother, she was on the way back to the airport to return to Cochin. She looked at her mother, who was seated beside her in the car. Her mother had dozed off to sleep, and her aging face was smoky in color like ash. Her mouth was open, and she resembled a dead body. The poet realized that her mother was old. She felt pain and sympathy for her. Her mother needed love, affection, and care. In order to come out of the gloom, the poet shifted her glance and looked out of the car's window. There she saw young trees pass by. Little children were running out of their houses into the playgrounds. These things were contrary to the aging face of her mother. They symbolized energy, life, and happiness. As they reached the airport and the poet was about to leave for the aeroplane, she glanced at her mother once again. Her mother appeared weak and pale, just like the moon in the winter season, which seems to have lost all its strength. The poet felt the pain and fear of losing her mother. She was reminded of her childhood when she used to fear of losing her mother. As a child, she could not bear to be separated from her mother even for a few minutes. Now the loss would be permanent as her mother was about to die and she would lose her forever. The poet did not express her feelings. She smiled and said, "See you soon, Amma," because she wanted her mother to live and they could meet again. Let's move on to the summary. The poet Kamala Das, on her way to the Cochin airport with her old mother sitting beside her, she looks at her closely and presents before us her image. As she looks at her mother's pale and pallid face, she is struck with the horror and pain of losing her. The mother with the dozing face and open mouth is compared to a corpse, that is, dead body. Here, the poet shows the typical love and affection which is present in a mother daughter relation. The poet is pained and shifts her attention outside the car in order to drive out the negative feelings. She changes her sad mood. She is trying to change her sad mood. The scene outside the window is of growing life and energy. The rapidly sprinting trees alongside the merrily playing children symbolize life, youth, and vitality. The poet here is reminded of her own childhood when her mother had been young, whereas now she is encircled with the fear of losing her, and that has made her insecure. She is at the airport to take the flight. It indicates departure and separation, which creates melancholy. As she bids goodbye to her mother, the image of the old, worn out mother in the twilight of years strikes her again. As she looks old now, her personality is affected by it. The poet is feeling the pain of separation, leaving her mother and going. Also, her childhood fear of losing her mother, which she feels that earlier was temporary but now could be forever. She bids farewell to her mother and, keeping her hope of seeing her again alive, says, "See you soon, Amma." She hides her sorrow as she does not want to create a painful environment for her mother and conveys to her that she is enjoying her life and similarly she wanted her mother to enjoy too. The seemingly short poem touches upon the theme of the bondage between the mother and daughter, smeared in the backdrop of nostalgia and fear. It is a very short poem without a full stop. The poem is more like a long sentence with an overflowing thought process. The poet uses the device of comparison, contrast, simile, and repetition. Let's have a quick recall. The poem My Mother at 66 presents the poet's realization of her mother's aging. The poet notices the old appearance of her mother during her car journey from her place to the airport at Cochin. The mother is sleeping with her mouth open. As the car travels, the daughter observes her mother. The pale complexion of the old woman is similar to that of a corpse. This makes her emotional. She puts the thoughts away, looks out through the window of the car. She looks at the passing green trees and young children coming out of their homes to play. The world around the poet appears young and energetic. It forms a contrast to the state of her mother. The poet describes the youthful scenery of the world to underscore the mature years of her mother. Furthermore, the scenery distracts the poet for a while during the car journey. She tries to distract herself from her surroundings, but her mother's appearance pulls her back again during the airport security check. Now, the poet Kamala Das is a grown up woman and she can hide her fears and tears. The daughter simply smiles at her mother and bids farewell as she moves towards her flight. The poet says, "See you, Amma, soon." She leaves with a smile. The poem concludes by underscoring the optimistic behavior people display towards their loved ones. This poem, My Mother at 66, is an intimate work. It brings out this ordinary but profound human nature. The conclusion: the message of the poem is the gradual but inevitable realization of one's parents getting old. One grows up with young, strong parents, but they grow older right in front of us. Here, the poet is sad about realizing the same. The message is to spend more time with them.